The Urantia book, section 4, The Life and Teachings of Jesus, paper 181, Final Admonitions and Warnings. So after the conclusion of the farewell discourse to the 11 apostles, Jesus visited informally with them and recounted many experiences which concerned them as a group and as individuals. At last it was beginning to dawn upon these Galileans that their friend and teacher was going to leave them, and their hope grasped at the promise that after a little while he would again be with them. But they were prone to forget that this return visit was also for a little while. Many of the apostles and the leading disciples really thought that this promise to return for a short season, the short interval between the resurrection and the ascension, indicated that Jesus was just going away for a brief visit with his Father, after which he would return to establish the kingdom, and as such an interpretation of his teaching conformed both with their perceived beliefs and with their ardent hopes. Since their lifelong beliefs and hopes of wish fulfillment were thus agreed, it was not difficult for them to find an interpretation of the Master's words which would justify their intense longings. After the farewell discourse had been discussed and had begun to settle down in their minds, Jesus again called the apostles to order and began the impartation of his final admonitions and warnings. 1. Last words of comfort. When the 11 had taken their seats, Jesus stood and addressed them. As long as I am with you in the flesh, he said, I can be but one individual in your midst, or in the entire world. But when I have been delivered from this investment of mortal nature, I will be able to return as a spirit indweller of each of you and of all other believers, which is the Spirit of truth, in this gospel of the kingdom. In this way, the Son of Man will become a spiritual incarnation in the souls of all true believers. When I have returned to live in you and work through you, I can do the better lead you on through this life and guide you through the many abodes in the future life, in the heaven of heavens. Life in the Father's eternal creation is not an endless rest of idleness and selfish ease, but rather a ceaseless progression in grace, truth, and glory. Each of the many stations in my Father's house is a stopping place, a life designed to prepare you for the next one ahead. And so will the children of light go on from glory to glory until they attain the divine estate wherein they are spiritually perfected, even as the Father is perfect in all things. If you would follow after me when I leave you, put forth your earnest efforts to live in accordance with the spirit of my teachings and with the ideal of my life, the doing of my Father's will. This do instead of trying to imitate my natural life in the flesh. And this is the whole misnomer in the Bible, in which Paul of Tarsus has tried people that we have to do the fivefold ministry of Jesus. If you do this, you are actually copying Jesus, his life, instead of living his teachings by implementing his teachings in your daily life and become the mirror for the people around you, in which they can see what it means to embody the teachings that Jesus has taught us. instead of copying exactly what he did. Being required to live it on this world. So he's saying this. This do instead of trying to imitate my natural life in the flesh, as I have perforce been required to live it on this world. So we need to know what he has taught us and implement this. So what is being taught? Us is being taught to live one another as Jesus has to love one another, as Jesus has loved us. This is the main thing that we have to do. This is the main thing that we have to implement in our daily life. And as soon as we start to implement this deeper and deeper into our daily lives, we start to live it. And by living it, we become this magnet for those lost sheep who are seeing that you live a type of life that they also want to live. The Father sent me into this world, but only a few of you have chosen fully to receive me. I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, but all men will not choose to receive this new teacher as the guide and counselor of the soul. But as many as do receive him shall be enlightened, cleansed, and comforted. And this Spirit of truth will become in them a well of living water, springing up into eternal life. And now, as I am about to leave you, I would speak words of comfort, peace. I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I make these gifts not as the world gives. By measure I give it each. I give each of you all you will receive. The letters, the printing style is not always handy chosen. And it is not black letters but grayish, and the papers are very thin and it's not handy reading. So I make these gifts not as the world gives. By measure I give each of you all you will receive. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be fearful. I have overcome the world, and in me you shall triumph through faith. I have warned you that the Son of Man will be killed, but I assure you I will come back before I go to the Father. Well, this is rehearsal, this is repeat. He has spoken this already 10 papers long, at least. And after I have ascended to the Father, I will surely send the new teacher to be with you and to abide in your very hearts. And when you see all this come to pass, be not dismayed, but rather believe, inasmuch as you knew it all beforehand, I have loved you with a great affection, and I would not leave you. But it is the Father's will, my hour has come. Doubt not any of these truths, even after you are scattered abroad by persecution and are downcast by many sorrows. When you feel that you are alone in the world, I will know of your isolation, even as when you are scattered, every man to his own place, leaving the Son of Man in the hands of his enemies. This is all repeat from all the papers so far read. Each and every paper has this more or less the same message. But I am never alone, always is the Father with me, even at such a time I will pray for you. And all of these things have I told you, that you might have peace and have it more abundantly. In this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. Not only in this world, by the way, in each and every world you will go through after this world, you will experience tribulation, which is logic and very logic. Otherwise your soul shall never grow, nor can build soul character. I have triumphed in the world and shown you the way to eternal joy and everlasting service. All right. Hmm. No. The peace of Jesus' mind was founded on an absolute human faith in the actuality of the Divine Father's wise and sympathetic overcare. Jesus had trouble on earth. He has even been falsely called the man of sorrows, but in an end through all of these experiences he enjoyed the comfort of that confidence which ever empowered him to proceed with his life purpose in the full assurance that he was achieving the Father's will. Jesus was determined, persistent, and thoroughly devoted to the accomplishment of his mission, but he was not an unfeeling and callous stoic. He ever sought for the cheerful aspects of his life experiences, but he was not a blind and self-deceived optimist. The Master knew all that was to befall him, and he was unafraid. After he had bestowed this peace upon each of his followers, he could consistently say, "Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." The peace of Jesus is then the peace and assurance of a son who fully believes that his career for time and eternity is safely and wholly in the care and keeping of an all-wise and all-loving and all-powerful Spirit Father, who is the one and only eternally living, righteous and sovereign primal cause of light and life. And this is indeed a peace which passes the understanding of mortal mind, but which can be enjoyed to the full by the believing human heart. Okay. Then we get a very long point 2. This is all about the farewell personal admonitions. To John, Jesus said, "You, John, are the youngest of my brethren. You have been very near to me, while I love you, all with the same love which a father bestows upon his sons. You were designated by Andrew as one of the 3 who should always be near me. Besides this, you have acted for me and must continue so to act in many matters concerning my earthly family. And I go to the Father, John, having full confidence that you will continue to watch over those who are mine in the flesh. See to it that their present confusion regarding my mission does not in any way, shape, or form prevent your extending to them all sympathy, counsel, and help, even as you know I would if I were to remain in the flesh. And when they all come to see the light and enter fully into the kingdom, while you all will welcome them joyously, I depend upon you, John, to welcome them for me." All right, then we go to the next. "And I have chosen you to do this for me, John, because you are the youngest and will therefore very likely outlive these other apostles. Once we called you and your brother sons of thunder. You started out with us strong-minded and intolerant, but you have changed much since you wanted me to call fire down upon the heads of ignorant and thoughtless unbelievers. And you must change yet more." Well, okay, this was this. As John Zebedee stood there in the upper chamber, the tears rolling down his cheeks, he looked into the Master's face and said, "And so I will, my Master, but how can I learn to love my brethren more?" And then Jesus gave him this last answer: you will learn to love your brethren more when you first learn to love their Father in heaven more, and after you have become truly more interested in their welfare in time and eternity. Okay, next. And then the master, passing around his own seat, paused a moment by the side of the place of Judas Iscariot. The apostles were rather surprised that Judas had not returned before this, and they were very curious to know the significance of Jesus' sad countenance as he stood by the betrayer's vacant seat. But none of them, except possibly Andrew, entertained even the slightest thought that their treasurer had gone out to betray his master, as Jesus had intimated to them earlier in the evening and during the supper. So much had been going on that for the time being they had quite forgotten about the master's announcement that one of them would betray him. Then Simon Zelotes, who stood up and listened to this admonition. I keep it short because it's almost 5-6 pages. Jesus now went to him, saying, you are a true son of Abraham, but what a time I have tried in making you a son of this heavenly kingdom. I love you, and so do all of your brethren. I know that you love me, Simon, and that you also love the kingdom, but you are still set on making this kingdom come according to your liking. Okay. Then Jesus says to him, I go to the Father. You would not cease to be my apostle, and that you would acceptably deport yourselves as an ambassador of the heavenly kingdom. Jesus had hardly ceased speaking to Simon Zelotes when the fiery patriot, drying his eyes, replied, Master, I have no fears. For my loyalty I have turned my back upon everything, that I might dedicate my life to the establishment of your kingdom on earth, and I will not falter. I have survived every disappointment so far, and I will not forsake you. Okay. And then Jesus is laying his hand on Simon's shoulder and says, it is indeed refreshing to hear you talk like that, especially at such a time as this. But my friend, you still do not know what you are talking about. Not for one moment would I doubt your loyalty, your devotion. I know you would not hesitate to go forth in battle and die for me, as all these others would. And they all nodded a vigorous approval. But that will not be required of you. I have repeatedly told you that my kingdom is not of this world, and that my disciples will not fight to affect its establishment. Okay. And then Simon wanted to speak further, but Jesus raised his hand and, stopping him, went on to say, none of my apostles are more sincere and honest at heart than you, but no one of them will be so upset and disheartened as you after my departure. Okay. Then Jesus went to Matthew. But Master, who will send us? And then spoke Matthew and said, Master, who will send us, and how shall we know where to go? Will Andrew show us the way? And Jesus answered, no. Matthew, Levi, Andrew will no longer direct you in the proclamation of the gospel. He will indeed continue as your friend and counselor until that day whereon the new teacher comes, and then shall the Spirit of truth lead each one of you abroad to labor for the extension of the kingdom. Many changes have come over you since that day at the custom house when you first set out, follow me. But many more must come before you will be able to see the vision of a brotherhood in which Gentiles sits alongside Jew in fraternal association. But go on with your urge to win your Jewish brethren until you are fully satisfied, and then turn with power to the Gentiles. One thing you may be certain of, Levi, you have won the confidence and affection of your brethren. They all love you, and all 10 of them signified their acquiescence in the Master's words. Now, then Jesus stepped over to James Zebedee, who stood in silence as the Master addressed him, saying, James, when you and your younger brother once came to me seeking preferment in the honors of the kingdom, and I told you such honors were for the Father to bestow, I asked if you were able to drink my cup, and both of you answered that you were. Even if you were not then able, and if you are not now able, you will soon be prepared for such a service by the experience you are about to pass through. Okay, well, whether your ministry be long or short, possess your soul in patience. When the new teacher comes, let him teach you the poise of compassion and that sympathetic tolerance which is born of sublime confidence in me and of perfect submission to the Father's will. So dedicate your life to the demonstration of that combined human affection and divine dignity of the God-knowing and Son-believing disciple. And all who thus live will reveal the gospel even in the manner of their death. So, well, you and your brother, of course, will go a different way. When the Master had finished speaking to James Zebedee, he stepped around to the end of the table where Andrew sat, and looking his faithful helper in the eyes, and said, Andrew, you have faithfully represented me as acting head of the ambassadors of the heavenly kingdom. Although you have sometimes doubted and at other times manifested dangerous timidity, still you have always been sincerely just and eminently fair in dealing with your associates ever since the ordination of you and your brethren as messengers of the kingdom. You have been self-governing in all group administrative affairs, except that I designated you as the acting head of these chosen ones. So in no other temporal matter have I acted to direct or to influence your decisions, and this I did in order to provide for leadership in the direction of all your subsequent group deliberations. And now, Andrew, since you are the chief of your brethren by authority of my appointment, and since you have thus served as my personal representative, and as I am about to leave you and go to my Father, I right now release you from all responsibilities as regards these temporal and administrative affairs. From now on, you may experience no jurisdiction over your brethren except that which you have earned in your capacity as spiritual leader, and which your brethren therefore freely recognize. From this hour you may exercise no authority over your brethren unless they restore such jurisdiction to you by their definitive legislative action after I shall have gone to the Father. As I prepare to leave you, I would liberate you from all administrative responsibilities which had its inception and authority in my presence as one among you. Henceforth I shall exercise only spiritual authority over you and among you. Then Jesus went to the Alphaeus twins, and standing between them said, My little children, you are one of the three groups of brothers who choose to follow after me. All 6 of you have done well to work in peace with your own flesh and blood, but none have done better than you. Hard times are just ahead of us. You may not understand all that will befall you and your brethren, but never doubt that you were once called to the work of the kingdom. For some time there will be no multitudes to manage, but do not become discouraged when your life work is finished. I will receive you on high, where in glory you shall tell of your salvation to seraphic hosts and to multitudes of the high sons of God. So dedicate your lives in the announcement of commonplace toil. Show all men on earth and the angels of heaven how cheerfully and courageously mortal man can, after having been called to work for a season in the special service of God, return to the labors of former days. And then Jesus went to Philip, who was standing up, heard this message from his master. Philip, you have asked me many foolish questions, but I have done my utmost to answer these. And now would I answer the last of such questions, which have arisen in your most honest but unspiritual mind. All the time I have been coming around toward you, have you been saying to yourself, what shall I ever do if the master goes away and leaves us alone in the world? O you of little faith, and yet you have almost as much as many of your brethren. You have been a good steward, Philip. You failed us only a few times, and one of those failures were utilized to manifest the Father's glory. Your office of stewardship is about over. You must soon more fully do the work you were called to do, the preaching of this gospel of the kingdom. Philip, you have always wanted to be shown, and very soon shall you see great things, far better that you should have seen all this by faith. But since you were sincere even in your material sightedness, you will live to see my words fulfilled. And then when you are blessed with spiritual vision, go forth to your work, dedicating your life to the cause of leading mankind to search for God and to seek eternal realities with the eye of spiritual faith and not with the eyes of the material mind. Remember, Philip, you have a great mission on earth, for the world is filled with those who look at life just as you have tended to. You have a great work to do, and when it is finished in faith, you shall come to me in my kingdom. And then the master went over to Nathanael. As Nathanael stood up, Jesus bade him be seated, and sitting down by his side, and said, Nathanael, you have learned to live above prejudice and to practice increased tolerance since you became my apostle. But there is, of course, much more for you to learn. You have been a blessing to your fellows in that they have always been admonished by your consistent sincerity. When I have gone, it may be that your frankness will interfere with your getting along well with your brethren, both old and new. You should learn that the expression of even a good thought must be modulated in accordance with the intellectual status and spiritual development of the hearer. So sincerity is most serviceable in the work of the kingdom when it is wedded to discretion. Well, then Nathanael spoke, asking Jesus this question. I have listened to your teaching ever since you first called me to the service of this kingdom, but I honestly cannot understand the full meanings of all you tell us. I do not know what to expect next, and I think most of my brethren are likewise perplexed, but they hesitated to confess their confusion. Can you help me? So Jesus, putting his hand on Nathanael's shoulder, said, My friend, it is not strange that you should encounter perplexity in your attempt to grasp the meaning of my spiritual teachings, since you are so handicapped by your preconceptions of Jewish tradition, and so tremendously confused by your persistent tendency to interpret my gospel in accordance with the teachings of the scribes and Pharisees. Okay. And the Spirit of truth, Nathanael, shall be with you. Fear not that which you now fail to comprehend. The new teacher, when he has come, will reveal to you throughout the remainder of your life on earth and on through your training in the eternal ages. All right. And then Jesus went over to Thomas, who was standing up, heard him say, Thomas, you have often lacked faith. However, when you have had your seasons with doubt, you have never lacked courage. I know well that the false prophets and spurious teachers will not deceive you. After I have gone, your brethren will the more appreciate your critical way of viewing new teachings. And when you are all scattered to the ends of the earth, in the times to come, remember that you are still my ambassador. Dedicate your life to the great work of showing how the critical material mind of man can triumph over the inertia of intellectual doubting when faced by the demonstration of the manifestation of living truth as it operates in the experience of spirit-born men and women who yield the fruits of the Spirit in their lives, and who love one another even as I have loved you. So Thomas, I am glad you joined us, and I now, after a short period of perplexity, you will go on in the service of the kingdom. Your doubts have perplexed your brethren, but they have never troubled me. I have confidence in you, and I will go before you even to the uttermost parts of the earth. Well, and then we have Simon Peter. The master went to Simon Peter, who stood up as Jesus addressed him. Peter, I know, says the master, you love me, and that you will dedicate your life to the public proclamation of this gospel of the kingdom to Jew and Gentile, but I am distressed that your years of such close association with me have not done more to help you think before you speak. What experience must you pass through before you will learn to set a guard upon your lips? How much trouble have you made for us by your thoughtless speaking, by your presumptuous self-confidence? And you are destined to make much more trouble for yourself if you do not master this frailty. You know that your brethren love you in spite of this weakness, and you should also understand that this shortcoming in no way impairs my affection for you, but it lessens your usefulness and never cease to make trouble for you. But you will undoubtedly receive great help from the experience you will pass through this very night. And what I now say to you, Simon Peter, I likewise say to all of your brethren here assembled this night. You will all be in great danger of stumbling over me. You know it is written, the shepherd will be smitten and the sheep will be scattered abroad. When I am absent, there is a great danger that some of you will succumb to doubts and stumble because of what befalls me. But I promise you now that I will come back to you for a little while, and that I will then go before you into Galilee. Then said Peter, placing his hand on Jesus' shoulder, no matter if all my brethren should succumb to doubts because of you, I promise that I will not stumble over anything you may do. I will go with you, and if need be, die for you. As Peter stood there before his master, all tremble with intense emotion and overflowing with genuine love for him, Jesus looked straight into his moistened eyes as he said, Peter, verily, verily, I say to you, this night the cock will not crow until you have denied me 4 times. And thus what you have failed to learn from peaceful association with me, you will learn through much trouble and many sorrows. And after you have really learned this needful lesson, you should strengthen your brethren and go on living a life dedicated to preaching this gospel, though you may fall into prison and perhaps follow me in paying the supreme price of loving service in the building of the Father's kingdom. But remember my promise, when I am raised up, I will tarry with you for a season before I go to the Father. And even this night will I make supplication to the Father that he strengthen each of you for that which you must now so soon pass through. I love you all with the love wherewith the Father loves me, and therefore should you henceforth love one another, even as I have loved you. And then when they had sung a hymn, they departed for the camp on the Mount of Olives. And with this said, I have ended the reading of paper 181. And my apology for the background noise. And I want to say thank you for listening to this audio video, and God bless you.